What's up, everyone? Steve here with Climb the Pocket, and welcome back to the Climb the Pocket YouTube channel for another episode of Battle in the Trenches NFL Week 2 edition. Now, before we start our video, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate the support. We're really trying to gain a dedicated following here on YouTube. And head over to climbthepocket.com for some awesome fantasy football articles and rankings to help you make your start-sit decisions for this week. Now, this week we're not going to have any moving parts, but we're still going to have some good, friendly fantasy football competition going on between me and Ryan, talking about our start-sits this week. So, Ryan, go ahead and say what's up.
Well, Steve, Johnners isn't here. He's a little under the weather. But the way that you plugged everything that we needed to plug in like this episode, 3 or 4, where we haven't done, I'd say Johnners is on the hot seat. So, look out for that next week. But I'm excited to get back into it. Week 1 was great. I expect week 2 to be just as good. So hopefully our start sits will help you this week, and at least going forward, as long as you keep tuning in. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for this week's action. Week 1 treated me pretty hard in a lot of my leagues, but I'm ready to snap back. I hit the waiver wire and got my bench revamped. I'm ready to put some guys in my starting lineup. So let's do it. All right, we're going to start the show off with the newsstand, and there's not too much news going around other than injury news, but Antonio Brown, I guess we have to talk about him. Traded to the Patriots. Wow, big difference from last week. Every 8 hours there's a new update on Antonio Brown, and then we have these off-the-field allegations with this sexual something.
Misconduct, we'll go with.
Misconduct. Yeah, I don't want to use the R word on camera, but there's definitely some serious allegations with Antonio Brown. Not surprised. He practiced today, though, so how do you feel about that? I'm pretty surprised the Patriots didn't just cut it.
It sounds like the Patriots knew when they signed him that this was a big possibility. It sounds like a couple days ago there was some tweets where AB knew that this was going to happen. We don't have all the facts. They just keep coming out. By the time you see this episode tomorrow, which is today for you on Thursday, you might know a lot more than we do. He might get cleared. On top of it, the accuser is meeting with the NFL, but she will not be meeting with the NFL till next week, where she's getting married this week. So there's a lot going on in this situation, and personally, I did not rank Antonio Brown in my top 50 on climbthepocket.com at wide receiver, just because I don't think he's going to play. Before this, Bill Belichick already said that he wasn't sure if he was going to play. I think it was because of this situation. I know he practiced today. He did not wear a new helmet, but I don't think he's going to play this week, and they'll be fine against the Dolphins. So, AB's situation is constantly fluid, and we're not going to know, the end of it till we know the end of it. So,
yeah, I would say if you own Antonio Brown, you're definitely just waiting until he goes out there and has a good week, and then you throw him in your lineup. You got to have a backup plan at this point, and I'm sure you already do if you're an avid fantasy football player and you're watching our channel. So let's go to the doctor's office, talk about some injuries. Number 1 on my list is definitely the Tyreek Hill situation. They say he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. I'm leaning probably more towards the 6 weeks. It's a pretty intense injury he got there, and I think that fantasy-wise, it's a boost to guys like Mecole Hardman and Robinson on that team, and definitely guys like Kelsey and Watkins, of course, is the new wide receiver 1.
Yeah, the thing is that I really want to see how Patrick Mahomes handles this. I want to see if it's a case where it was in Pittsburgh, where AB and Ben Roethlisberger made each other last year. I want to see if Tyreek Hill helped make everything easier for Patrick Mahomes. He allows Travis Kelce to catch all those 15 to 20-yard balls when he's taking the top off the defense. So I don't know if Sammy Watkins can fill in for that role. He did great last week. Was that a case of the week 1 the defense wasn't ready to play? I'm not sure, but I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be the prime, person that gets. I don't like how it's set up for him to go into this week, especially with that ankle that he has too.
True.
I don't like what's going on for him this week. He's going to be my QB1, but I just want to see how he reacts with it. So, I'm excited for that.
It's hard for him not to be the QB1.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, if you watch him in week 1, I know it might be week 1 jitters, but that Jags defense is good. They have good corners, and he he looked better than last year, which was scary. Like Patrick Mahomes looked good. I was playing against him in multiple leagues. Like it sucks to watch him play against you because he's just constantly racking up points. He had like 300 yards in the first half.
I mean,
that game could have got out of hand.
I mean,
if he didn't get hurt.
He's the same as Rob Gronkowski was for 3 or 4 years, where you just pencil him in as the position player number one. Like, I mean, he's unfair. I mean, it was kind of nice for me to watch that game and have him not hit Travis Kelce on that no-look pass just to know that he's human. But,
he didn't need to. He was wide open.
He was literally wide open. I know he wants the flashy play in week 1, but I mean, it's week 1. He wasn't completely ready. But Tyreek Hill, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, he went to the ICU with that injury. I mean,
it was pretty serious.
They thought it was really bad. I mean, it seemingly came out better than they initially thought, but it's not good though.
Make plans to replace Tyreek Hill in your lineups, guys. Nick Foles broke his clavicle. He's going to be out for at least 8 weeks. I don't know what kind of expectations we had for Foles, but any players in that offense, Leonard Fournette, he might get a boost in volume, but his efficiency might not be as great because they're going to be expecting to run. Guys like D.D. Westbrook and DJ Chark showed out pretty well, but that was kind of when Foles was still out there and whatnot. So I don't really know what to expect. I'm probably not really buying any Jags players right now.
No, I mean, Nick Foles, I mean, this is the second time that I can recall him breaking his clavicle. I mean, he broke it once in Philadelphia. It's kind of, I mean, everyone talked about how Wentz needed that security with Nick Foles behind him, but Nick Foles was hurt just as much in Philadelphia as Carson Wentz has been. And, I mean, that's kind of just his MO, and it's unfortunate just because that guy's, I mean, he was great for my city, so I mean,
you got yours.
Exactly. I mean, I like Gardner Minshew filling in just because he's, I mean, a quirky dude that, I mean, he's like Baker Mayfield, but like the store brand version, where like you kind of like what he's saying. He's kind of weird, and you're pulling for him, but I mean, you don't know if the talent's completely there with Gardner. That's why they brought Josh Dobbs in, and I mean, I think they brought Dobbs in to be a backup quarterback. So I mean, I think they expect Foles to be back halfway through the year.
Minshew played pretty good, though.
Yeah, he did.
Went out. He had like a crazy, like he didn't like incomplete a pass for like 15 straight passes.
Yeah, that was nuts. I mean, it must be the mustache. And I mean, he looks like
he's got a pretty wicked mustache for sure.
Sweet.
Let's move on to some new news today. Hunter Henry broke a bone in his knee. That sucks for a lot of fantasy owners who invested in him in the middle rounds. And O.J. Howard, a guy in the middle rounds, not really tuning out. So pretty much if you got Evan Ingram in the middle, you're feeling pretty good. But people who got Hunter Henry are kind of screwed here. And if you go to the waiver wire, it's already thin at tight end, guys. People are stocking up on tight ends, 2 on each team and whatnot. If you don't have a second one on your team and you had Hunter Henry, you're going to have to be taking a deep dive this week. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I saw a report that he may only miss 4 to 6 weeks, which seems kind of ridiculous for a guy that already has knee issues. I think that for a big guy where, I mean, the cornerbacks and safeties are taught to tackle low on, it's going to be a tough recovery for him. I mean, I feel terrible for this guy just because we know how hard he fought to get back this year. It's a boost to Keenan Allen. I mean, Mike Williams is also banged up, so I mean, I don't know how that passing offense is going to look. And I think they're going to have to ride Austin Eckler for the foreseeable future. And, I mean, I don't really like that just in general for the Chargers just because that was not the offense they expected to have. But if Hunter Henry's back in 6 weeks and somebody drops him, I think he's a great stash on your team. I mean, it doesn't hurt, especially if you're one of those guys that believed in Vance McDonald or David Njoku. He's a good stash for you to have because those tight ends kind of look sketchy week 1, and we don't know what they're going to look like in week 2.
Yeah, definitely. They're going to probably have to lean on a little more Justin Jackson than Austin Eckler unless they want him to risk getting hurt out there. He had a pretty big game week 1, but if they keep giving that kind of workload, the chances of him getting injured are going to increase. Derrius Guice injured his knee, banged up the other knee, not the ACL knee, in this game against Philly. Adrian Peterson immediately slot in there as the starter, but for Derrius Guice, I mean, what are you doing with him? When do you expect him to be back?
I mean, today Gruden said that there's no timetable for him. To me, that's a bad sign. I mean, when there's good news, the team gets it out as quick as possible. Like, during the game that, it's an MCL sprain, he'll be back in 2 weeks. Or, like, something like that. When it's something bad, you don't know. And I think that's kind of what the Redskins are dealing with, especially, I mean, with Adrian Peterson there, they don't have to rush him back. I mean, he was a healthy scratch this week. which, I mean, was kind of ridiculous in its own right. But I think that they are going to be comfortable with AP, and I think you're going to see a lot more Chris Thompson. Chris Thompson has the talent, and I love Chris Thompson. I mean,
me too.
He's a sleeper for me every year. I take him too early, he gets hurt. So I think if he's healthy, which he looked very healthy against the Eagles, he might be the primary beneficiary of that injury.
A few years ago, he was able to handle a lot of that workload, and he was definitely like a really high-end RB2 for a while.
For sure.
And I think he can do the same thing. AP is going to come in and definitely handle the first couple downs, but if Thompson gets going, catching a lot of passes, and they keep him in there for the first couple downs and some drives, I think he can definitely produce. So I'm excited. I took Thompson personally over AP in quite a few leagues just because I like the upside in the PPR leagues. All right, let's go ahead and let's go over the start sits for this week. This is the bread and butter of the show. Everyone comes here to see this stuff. We're going to hit you with a couple starts and sits at each position. QB we like to start this week, like the sit, wide receiver, etc. And like I said, no moving parts today. We're going to try to make it a competition. So if we feel like we're better than the other, we're definitely going to let the other person know. So I'm going to go ahead and start this off with my QB start this week. It's Jared Goff coming off a down week in Carolina. Their stats show that Jared Goff, definitely not good on the road. The splits are there, and it's game one. They didn't play in the preseason. I think they're going to bounce back in this game against New Orleans. Like, there's no way it can't be. It doesn't have to be a shootout, but I think they're going to be way more efficient at home. They play a lot better at home, and all those Rams wide receivers are going to get going. Robert Woods had a bunch of targets. He probably had the best game out of the three Rams wide receivers. But Jared Goff, the first game, he just looked off. I think he just had to, get that rust off. We're seeing that with the preseason, people not playing in the preseason. They might need the first game just to get the rust off, and I think that's what Jared Goff. Another quarterback I like this week is Matt Ryan versus Philly, who are a couple of QBs you like to start.
So week one was big for getting an easy eliminator win out in your eliminator pool, and that's what I'm doing in week two with my QB start. You will not hear me tell you to start this guy for the rest of the year, and maybe for the rest of the time, because I don't like him as a quarterback. I don't like him with his weapons. I don't like his offense. But in the last two games against the team he's playing, Derek Carr has been QB2 and QB4. So Derek Carr is my start against a Kansas City Chiefs defense that the Jaguars have 25 fantasy points at QB. So Derek Carr has a lot to prove. I mean, he no longer has that AB weapon that he was expecting to have. I mean, he was very mature talking about it. If anyone saw that press conference, I loved how he handled it. I mean, he's growing on me slightly. He's not going to get there this year, but I mean, he's got a lot to prove with an offense that people think is going to be terrible. So he's my start this week. He's definitely inside the QB top 10 for me. And if you need to bring somebody off the bench, if you need to take somebody off the wire, Derek Carr's the guy, just because, I mean, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, they're playing the Chiefs this week too, so it could be a high. The Chiefs might get on 100%. Top, and they're going to have to pass. They're at home. I see him. He could definitely pass for 3 touchdowns. And Darren Waller was a great target the other night. For sure. And Tyrell Williams, he looked great. So I don't see the absence of Antonio Brown, even though it's not really an absence because he was never really there.
Yep.
I don't see that being a problem. I think they found something in Tyrell Williams. So I kind of like that start. But you can't win with Derek Carr. I'm taking those.
That's fair.
Taking the points.
That's fine. I'll give you the points.
What about some QB sits for you?
I'm going. My main QB sit is, unfortunately, one of my boys, Cam Newton. I mean, it's a short week for him. He's going against a pretty good Tampa Bay defense. And, I mean, he was terrible week one. He was not good at all. And they stayed in the game because of Christian McCaffrey. And, I mean, that's what their game plan's got to be. I mean, we don't know how Cam's shoulder is. We don't know how his body's holding on after a year off, pretty much. I mean, he didn't look like Cam Newton that we used to know. I mean, his throws didn't come out nice, and I just don't like his optics this week. I mean, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey on a short week, and that's who I'm sitting. I don't like Cam Newton at all.
Yeah, I definitely don't like Cam Newton. And my sit, we're just going to avoid the Thursday night football game because I'm sitting Jameis Winston.
That's fine.
He looked horrible in the first week. Mike Evans was sick. He didn't have his number one alpha receiver to lean on. Chris Godwin got a little bit of his, but Jameis just looks irresponsible out there.
Yeah.
He tosses balls. He takes way too many chances, and he gets too many interceptions. He's always going to be an interception guy. I was not in on him last week as a top 5 receiver following a lot of the rest of the industry. I wasn't about it. I didn't see him putting up 300 yards and 3 touchdowns at least without at least 3 interceptions. And, he definitely didn't hit the yardage or the touchdowns. So I'm out on him this week, especially on the short week where Mike Evans still might not be full health. So I'm out on not Mike Evans. I'm probably starting Mike Evans still, honestly, but I'm out on Jameis this week. I don't know how those correlate. You hope that his only touchdown goes to Mike Evans. You know
exactly.
How that goes. Exactly. Another guy I don't like this week is Mitch Trubisky. You probably don't have him as a starter in like a 10 or 12 man league, but if it's a 2 quarterback league or super flex, you want to put him on the bench against Denver. He looked awful in week 1 too. That guy's got tunnel vision. I'm a Mitch guy. I think he's got upside, but he has not looked great. That's one of those guys you're going to have to keep on your bench until he hits one of those strides like he did last year where he was kind of unstoppable for like a month during the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that. I mean, Mitch Trubisky can't throw, so I'd say
he's all out on Mitch Trubisky altogether.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, let's go over to the running backs, everyone's favorite position. A couple of my start running backs. Mark Ingram, I mean, if you have Mark Ingram on your team, you're feeling pretty happy that you got him in the 4th round, maybe the 5th round of like a 10-man league. And he's turned out to be a pretty good pick, maybe a low 3rd round pick, high 2nd round pick. He's going to do really good in that Baltimore offense. He's going to be the goal line back. And if they produce, I mean, they played Miami last week. I understand that defense is just a CFL defense, something different.
Exactly.
They are bad, but they're going to have the Baltimore defense or offense is going to be good, and Mark Ingram is the goal line back, and he's still pretty good. He got signed from free agency, and he definitely didn't look stale at all. He catches a lot of passes. I think you definitely have a high-end RB2, possible low-end RB1 in Mark Ingram. And going against Arizona at home, wow, what a good streak of matchups there, starting with Miami and Arizona. If you have Mark Ingram on your team, you are very happy that you got these first 2 matchups, and I think he's going to take that momentum with him throughout the whole season. Another running back I like is Devin Singletary. I like what he did in his first game. Really efficient, and I think he's going to get a bigger role in the offense very, very soon. What about your running back starts, Ryan?
So you kind of touched on who I should be starting just based on the matchup, and that's Sony Michel. I mean, Sony Michel gets to play the Dolphins this week, and he had a terrible week last week, but there's nothing a CFL defense can't cure, and Sony Michel is going to see all the work this week. I mean, there's no real reason to have James White in the game. I can see a little bit of Rex Burkhead, but, I mean, I don't expect anything besides a heavy dosage of Sony Michel, especially once he gets into the second half. I mean, that game is going to be out of reach by then, and, I mean, I'd expect for them to give him 25 touches.
I know they're playing Miami, but what's the difference in the situation they were last week when they were playing Pittsburgh and they were up pretty big? And, I mean, they gave the ball to Sony, but it seems like they were kind of just giving it to him to run the clock out
so
and whatnot.
I think the thing is Pittsburgh's an actual team, right? So where they've got to actually handle them as opposed to just doing the easy, we're just going to give the ball to the third string feeling guy. Like I feel like just giving it to Sony Michel in the second half will, I mean, make the game shorter as opposed to when they were playing Pittsburgh where they kind of just wanted to almost choke them out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like against Pittsburgh they want to be just thematic and run their offense the way they want to run it, especially in week 1, where Miami, they're just going to want that game over with.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Pittsburgh defensive line is just in a completely other realm than whatever Miami's trotting out there on defense. I don't even know.
That too.
Yeah, so they, respect to Pittsburgh for staying out there and playing some good defense against the run game. Let's go over to the running back sits. For me, it's another Bear. Not Mitch Trubisky. They're going to Denver. I'm not playing David Montgomery this week. He's just another guy that I think still has a lot of upside. You definitely don't want to drop him, or I don't think you should really trade him away. I think you kind of just got to sit and wait. We didn't really learn that much in the first week. We learned that Mike Davis is involved, but it's kind of just an all-around ugly game. I think once David Montgomery gets in there and he actually breaks off some runs and just has an overall better stat line, I think a couple of those together, I think Matt Nagy will learn that he needs to get more of the touches. And he looked like the most elusive back, I think. He had a couple of runs where he made some really good cuts and powered through and broke some tackles. And I think everyone thought he was the better back. They just didn't give him the opportunity. But I'm not playing this week against Denver. Their D-line is really good, and I just don't really like this game altogether. I'm pretty much trying to stay away from all players in this game.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, to go off of that, one of my sits is Phillip Lindsay. I mean, we saw what Aaron Jones did against the Bears last week, and it was absolutely nothing. I mean, hopefully that I can take the magic you had telling everyone to sit Aaron Jones, and I'm going to tell you to sit Phillip Lindsay this week against that Bears defense, because that's where the Bears are going to win games. I mean, they're going to win games on defense, especially with that defensive line. That defensive line is top 2, and it's probably not number 2. You know what I mean? Like, that's how good that defensive line is.
It's dirty.
So, like, if you have a running back that's playing against them, pick somebody up. Do something. Don't play that running back because you're going to get burned. I mean, that's just how it's going to go. And, I mean...
Don't even...
Yeah, I mean, like, you might think, oh, he might score a touchdown. No, he's not going to score a touchdown. Like, the odds of him scoring a touchdown, slim. And, I mean, that kind of goes in line with the next running back that I would sit, and that's Devonta Freeman against the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I might be a slight homer, but the Eagles gave up like 30 rushing yards last week. Granted, Derrius Guice went down with an injury, and, I mean, they didn't really run Chris Thompson between the tackles. But, I mean, if you're running at Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox as the 2 main guys with Timmy Jernigan and Derek Barnett and Vinny Curry, I mean, that's a good defensive line too. And, I mean, they were top 5 in the league last year in rush defense. I don't like any running backs against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, and I think this is a game, like I said earlier, about to start. I think Matt Ryan's going to snap back, and I think Julio's going to have a good game,
sure.
and Calvin Ridley, and I just think they're not really going to run the ball that much. I mean, you want to go against those Philly DBs. You know, that's kind of what the 100%. Redskins did. That's kind of part of the reason they didn't really run the ball that much, is because they were taking the defense over the top with Terry McLaurin. So yeah, Devonta Freeman definitely a good sit. I think you win that round. I definitely like those sits, and I would not start Freeman or Lindsay against Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's get right into my wide receiver starts, because I mean you touched on it, but I'm starting Calvin Ridley 1,000% of the time against this Philadelphia Eagles defense. I mean, he's the guy that I would want to be in my lineup, in every single lineup. If you do DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever, put Calvin Ridley in your lineup. I saw Terry McLaurin torch the Eagles for 125 yards. And
Terry McLaurin? Who's that?
Yeah, exactly. No one knows.
Stud.
He's a stud. He's on my team. He's on your team. But
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, he should have had 200 yards. Case Keenum missed him on another 70-yard bomb that he missed him by 15 yards. But, I mean, he was wide open. And the way I expect the Eagles to play Julio Jones is I expect Ron Darby on him, and I expect them to have Rodney McLeod over the top for him. I mean, that leaves Malcolm Jenkins going in the box, and, I mean, they're either going to have 3 safeties, which they'll have Sendejo up top, and, I don't know, Avonte Maddox and or Sidney Jones on Ridley. I don't like that matchup for the Philadelphia Eagles, but I love that matchup for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, definitely like Calvin Ridley this week. I think he could have a really good game. A start for me, I touched on it earlier with Jared Goff, but I'm starting Robert Woods this week. He got the majority of the targets this past week in Carolina. Now, he didn't convert on them all because of Jared Goff's inaccuracy and rustiness in Game 1, but I think they snap back in Game 2. And against New Orleans, I think it's going to be kind of a little shootout, and I think Robert Woods is the go-to guy. I think he plays out of the slot, and he attacks P.J. Williams, and I think that he's going to go for a touchdout and over 100 yards. I think I'm just going to – that's my lock of the week, is Robert Woods gets in the end zone and 100 yards with 6 catches at least. You know what, 7 catches. I don't want to say at least 6 catches. Let me be firm. 7 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. A solid game for Robert Woods.
Listen, so this is mostly unrelated, right? But me and Johnders were talking yesterday, right? And we have an idea for a show that we can do where you come out with some hot take like that and you're wrong, you got to drink hot sauce live or on a video. So look for Hot Shots and Hot Sauce coming to you at some point during the near future.
That's starting the next episode.
Yeah,
I mean,
week
3 episode
Johnders isn't here.
Hot Shots and Hot Sauce.
I mean, Johnders might not watch the episode, so you might get off scot-free. So maybe that's good for you. But
whatever. I'm firm on that bet. I'll drink the hot sauce. He's going for 100 and definitely 1 and 7 catches. Right. He's going to be my lock wide receiver this week. Another guy I like is Tyrell Williams against Kansas City. Like I said, that game's going to be a shootout, I think. Or they're playing from behind, and Tyrell Williams is the guy. He's the guy. He looks great. He was able to take the top off the defense. He got in the end zone. I see that happening again this week. And Mecole Hardman taking over as the wide receiver 2 for Pat Mahomes. Any opportunity you have to be the wide receiver 2 for Pat Mahomes, right. He's going immediately into your starting lineup as a flex play. I like Mecole Hardman this week, just taking a shot on him, especially in like a 12-man league where your flex is like you're trying to make that decision. If you have Mecole Hardman, just throw him in there against this Raiders defense. Like I said, I think it could be a little shootout. I take the chance on that he goes for like 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I don't hate that.
It's a chance.
Yeah, I like that.
A couple guys you like too is Michael Gallup, which I like too, and Jamison Crowder, who had like 80 catches.
Yep. So Jamison Crowder, everyone has a guy in the NFL that they religiously take in fantasy football for no reason. Jamison Crowder's always been that guy for me. I've always thought he would have PPR value, and maybe he finally does, especially with Quincy Enunwa having another terrible injury. But Jamison Crowder thrives off PPR, and Sam Darnold needs a security blanket until the tight end. I'm blanking on his name. He comes back.
Herndon.
Yeah. Until he comes back, he needs a security blanket. So James.
Hey, keep an eye out for Herndon. Starting next week, you're going to want to see if he's on your waiver wire because he comes back after week 4. I
think he comes back for week 4. I think it was a 4-game suspension down to 3.
Okay, well, keep an eye on him over the next few weeks to add him, especially if you're thin on tight end or just lost Hunter Henry, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. They say 4 weeks on that, but he could be a really good stash on your bench. But speaking of the tight end, let's get to the tight ends before we close the show out. My starts this week is Darren Waller. Man, I'm staying in that KC and that Oakland game. Like I said, I think it's going to be a shootout, and Darren Waller proved to be a really viable target for Derek Carr. I think he's the real deal. With Antonio Brown gone, everyone thought Antonio Brown being there was going to kind of take away the targets that Jared Cook left behind, but Darren Waller slides right into that Jared Cook role, and Jared Cook was a very, very valuable fantasy tight end last year, and Darren Waller might be more athletic, so I definitely like Darren Waller this week. Another guy I like to slide into your lineup is Vernon Davis versus Dallas. If Jordan Reed does not play, Vernon Davis just always seems to come on in there and continue to put up decent fantasy numbers. He had one play that kind of made his week last week, but I think that he's a guy, if you lost Hunter Henry, you can slide Vernon Davis in there for a week before you try to figure out your situation at tight end, and you could definitely do worse.
Yeah, my start is O.J. Howard. People are saying, why are you starting O.J. Howard? The quarterback's terrible. O.J. Howard had a terrible first week. I think that Bruce Arians is actually a smart head coach, and he's going to try to figure something out for Jameis to get into some type of rhythm. And, the easiest way to do that is find your big tight end that's very athletic. And I think that he's going to be involved in that game Thursday night. Pretty early and pretty often. He's a very athletic guy. We've seen him bust off 80-yard runs. So I think that he seems like a safe play if you're playing anybody in that game besides Mike Evans. I feel like it's got to be O.J. Howard just based on the fact that he's got to get involved. He's got to get going on this year.
Yeah, they need to figure out a better way to use him. They did not use him in that first game against San Francisco. So we just predicted like 2 touchdowns, I think, for Jameis. Yeah, so I guess it's a decent... No, he's sitting. So I'm definitely taking Mike Evans for sure. The touchdown over O.J. Howard. But yeah, I do like that start. I wouldn't be sitting O.J. Howard just because one bad week. You drafted him as the 4th overall tight end in your league, most likely. You're going to want to put him out there starting on a short week. Doesn't matter. Put him out there. My tight end sit is going to be Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham played on Thursday night in that opener against Chicago and had a decent game, I guess, and got all this hype over the weekend. I don't really see why. He had quite a few targets, and he came down with a few impressive catches, I guess, but his stat line was still only 3 for 30 and a touchdown. It wasn't anything crazy. It's not like he had a TJ Hawkinson stat line. So for you to rush out to the waiver wire and then pick this guy up and then put him in your lineup, it's hard to believe that you don't have a better option than Jimmy Graham. He's still like a low-end tight end 2, or like he's a mid tight end 2 still. I wouldn't be putting him in my lineup this week, especially against Minnesota. It doesn't get any easier. So 3 for 30 last week against the Bears. Don't expect a much better stat line against Minnesota.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. Minnesota is very stout defensively. It's a divisional game. So I think the only way the Packers win that game is if they finally get Devonta Adams involved after a terrible week 1, and they've got to get Aaron Jones involved. So I don't hate that sit at all. My sit, though, is Vance McDonald, right? We've been talking about Vance McDonald breakouts for, 6 months now since the season ended, and I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, realistically, the reason why people wanted Vance McDonald to break out as a tight end was one play where he stiff-armed Chris Conte, and that was the only guy on defense, right? So I don't believe in Vance McDonald. There's hundreds of better options, including Delanie Walker, who went unclaimed on many waiver wires and didn't get drafted because he was too old, because people put him in the same mold as Greg Olsen. They put him in the same mold as Jimmy Graham, where Delanie Walker is definitely a viable pickup in, shorter leagues that you can pick him up in. I just don't think Vance McDonald's a good tight end, and that offense needs to figure something out quick because they look bad without AB.
Yeah, a couple other sits me and Ryan don't like. David Njoku are at the Jets, and was that Evan Ingram versus Buffalo? Yeah. Okay, that's a hot take. You should have talked about that one, but he's saying...
Listen, I'm more confident in sitting Vance McDonald, obviously. But
okay.
Evan Engram against that defense is dangerous. I mean, he's going to be their only target, and that's a defensive-minded team with Sean McDermott. I like the Bills to come out on top in that game.
Yeah, I'm winning that round. That's fine. I'm winning this game. Thanks for coming out to Battle in the Trenches. Those are your starts and sits. Come back next week. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you week 3.